The slap echoed, a sharp, ugly sound that shattered the afternoon quiet of the luxurious Boston suburban home. My mother-in-law, Eleanor Vance, lunged at me, her face contorted with rage. "You don't give my son's money to outsiders." With those words, I immediately canceled her $150,000 cancer treatment, then filed for divorce. Crack! The dry, stinging sound ripped through the tranquil atmosphere of the grand house. The imprint of Eleanor's 5 fingers burned a raw, red mark on my cheek. My head spun, my body staggered, and the world around me seemed to fall into a dead silence. All I could hear was a dull ringing in my ears and the metallic taste of blood from the corner of my lip. Stunned, I clutched my burning cheek and looked up, my eyes wide with disbelief, at the woman I had spent 8 years trying to love as my own mother. "Who gave you permission to do that?" she hissed, her teeth clenched. Her already sharp eyes now blazed with a murderous intensity, fixed on me as if she wanted to tear me apart. "Who let you take my son's money and give it to that white trash family of yours? Do you have any idea what that money represents? It's Ethan's blood, sweat, and tears. I forbid it. From this day on, not a single dime from this house goes to any outsider without my permission. Do you hear me? Outsider." That word, outsider, twisted like a knife in my heart. The outsider she referred to was my own mother. The money I had supposedly taken without permission was $200. It was an insignificant sum compared to the multi-million-dollar fortune my husband and I possessed. I hadn't used that $200 for myself, for shopping or leisure. I had sent it to my mother, a woman who had toiled her whole life in a small town in Ohio, so she could buy some supplements for her aching back, which had been troubling her for months. That was all. I turned to my husband, Ethan Vance, who stood just a few feet away, a silent witness to the entire scene. He was my only hope. I expected him to rush forward, to shield me, to roar at his mother that she had no right to treat his wife this way. But he did nothing. He stood there, frozen like a statue. He saw the slap, he heard the venomous words, but all he did was furrow his brow slightly before lowering his head, avoiding my pleading gaze. His was a cowardly silence, a tacit approval. And it was that lowered head, not Eleanor's slap, that destroyed everything inside me. The love, the sacrifice, the trust, and the 8 years of my youth I had devoted to this man and his family, all of it shattered into dust. 8 years ago, when Ethan and I married, he was just a junior sales rep with a grand dream of starting his own pharmaceutical company. I was a young pharmacist, a top graduate of my class, pursued by major corporations. I gave it all up. I abandoned my own promising career path to become his support system. I told him to chase his dream, that I would handle the science, and I did. I spent countless sleepless nights in research, developing proprietary formulas for a line of dietary supplements. I used my knowledge and my connections with leading professors in the field to build the company's product foundation. I was the one who devised the business strategy and secured our first crucial partnerships. His company, Vance Pharmaceuticals, grew from a tiny startup in a rented garage to a respected business with millions in annual revenue. We moved from a cramped apartment to this sprawling mansion. Ethan went from a nobody to a celebrated CEO, and me, I remained the wife behind the man. I held no official title in the company. People only knew me as Mrs. Vance, a lucky woman who just stayed home and enjoyed the fruits of her husband's labor. No one knew that the brain of Vance Pharmaceuticals, the soul of all the products that made its name, was this stay-at-home wife. I had accepted it all, accepted standing in the shadows so my husband could shine. I thought his success was my success, that the family's happiness was my happiness. I cared for Eleanor more diligently than I cared for my own mother. When she was sick, I was the one to bring her medicine and cook her meals. Whatever she wanted, I tried to provide. I thought if I treated her with a sincere heart, one day she would see me as a daughter. But I was wrong. In her eyes, I was, and always would be, just a daughter-in-law, a freeloader, a tool to serve her son and his family. The money Ethan earned, despite my work being its source, she considered my son's money. This slap was my awakening. It shattered every illusion I had clung to for 8 years. The pain on my cheek faded, replaced by a cold, terrifying emptiness. I looked at Eleanor, at Ethan, not as a wife or a daughter-in-law, but as a complete stranger. I said nothing. I didn't cry or argue. I simply turned, walked up to our bedroom, and locked the door. I ignored Ethan's frantic calls from the other side, ignored Eleanor's muffled curses. I sat at my vanity and stared at my reflection. The woman in the mirror had a swollen red cheek, a bloody lip, and vacant eyes. But deep within those eyes, a fire was beginning to burn, the fire of trampled dignity, of long-suppressed resentment. My gaze fell upon a medical file on the table. It was Eleanor's. She had been diagnosed with early-stage cancer a week ago. Using all my knowledge and connections, I had found the best possible treatment plan at a world-renowned Boston hospital. It was a premium treatment package, costing $150,000, with a high probability of saving her life. All the arrangements were nearly complete, waiting only for my final confirmation the next morning. $150,000, the amount I had planned to use to save the life of the woman who had just struck me over $200. The irony was suffocating. A cold, decisive thought formed in my mind. They had taught me a lesson about being an outsider. Fine, I would show them. Once I was an outsider, I would live and act like one. The heavy oak door slammed shut, creating an invisible but formidable barrier between me and the chaos outside. I leaned against it, my body trembling not from fear, but from the immense psychological shock. Ethan's knocking and Eleanor's muttering faded into a distant murmur. In that moment, my world was reduced to the ringing in my ears, the sting on my cheek, and a complete internal collapse. The last drop had overflowed the cup. The vessel of patience I had painstakingly filled with love and sacrifice for 8 years had shattered into 1,000 pieces. I stumbled to the bed and collapsed onto it. I didn't cry. It felt as if my tears had long since dried up from being swallowed back down too many times. I sat motionless, letting the memories of the past 8 years flood my mind, sharper and more bitter than ever before. I remembered my first day as a daughter-in-law. Eleanor had held my hand, her words sweet as honey. "From now on, this is your home. Think of me as your own mother. Ethan is so lucky to have a wife as beautiful and talented as you." I believed her. I naively believed that if I just lived a good life, a selfless life, I would receive genuine love in return. And so I did. I turned down a 6-figure job offer from a multinational pharmaceutical giant to start from scratch with Ethan. I used all of my wedding money, along with funds borrowed from my own parents, as the seed capital for his venture. I was the company's first and only employee in those difficult early days. By day, I was a researcher, an accountant, a delivery person. By night, I was a wife and daughter-in-law, responsible for cooking, cleaning, and all the household chores. Eleanor was healthy then. She didn't help much, but always acted as if she were the mastermind. Whenever the company achieved a small success, she would boast to the neighbors, "My son Ethan is so brilliant, so talented. He built this empire with his own 2 hands." She never once acknowledged my contribution. I let it go. I told myself that family shouldn't keep score. The company grew. We gained wealth and status, but my life didn't change. I was still the silent woman in the background. Ethan became consumed by meetings and social events. He came home later and later, and our conversations grew shorter and shorter. He got used to me handling everything at home, used to new product formulas appearing on his desk as if by magic. He saw it as my responsibility, my duty. Eleanor became more and more overbearing. She started meddling in everything, from my personal spending to how I dressed and socialized. "You're a CEO's wife now. You have to maintain an image for your husband," she'd say. "Don't be wasteful. Don't dress so provocatively." She controlled my finances tightly. Even though the money in our account was a result of our joint effort, every time I wanted to buy something for myself or send a gift to my parents, I had to report to her and endure her lectures. Why buy such an expensive purse? That money should be reinvested in the company. What do your parents in Ohio need so much money for? Send them a little at a time. Too much will spoil them. I endured it all. I tried to accommodate her wishes just to keep the peace, to prevent Ethan from being caught between his mother and his wife. I deluded myself into thinking all mothers-in-law were like this, that her strictness was for our own good. But the breaking point came with her cancer diagnosis. The news was a devastating blow. Despite her treatment of me, deep down I still considered her my mother. I set aside all my grievances and poured all my energy into finding a cure. I stayed up for nights on end, reading hundreds of medical journals, calling all my friends and former professors in the medical field for consultations. I found a cutting-edge treatment plan, a combination of immunotherapy and proton therapy available at a prestigious international hospital. The success rate was very high, but the cost was astronomical, $150,000 for the entire course. When I presented the plan, both Ethan and Eleanor's eyes lit up. "This is fantastic, honey," Ethan said, hugging me tightly. "Only my wife could be this brilliant. Just do it. Money is no object as long as we can save Mom." Eleanor gripped my hand, her eyes welling with tears. "Evelyn, thank you. I know you're a good daughter. I'm counting on you." I believed those tears. I thought that through this crisis, she had finally come to understand my heart. I worked tirelessly, handling all the logistics, from contacting the hospital and preparing medical records to arranging the finances. The sum of $150,000 was not small. I had to convince Ethan to withdraw a large portion from the company's savings. I was even planning to sell some of my valuable jewelry to cover the difference. I did it all with one hope: to save her life. And yet, for just $200, I sent to my own mother, a simple act of filial piety. She had the heart to treat me this way. That slap wasn't just a physical assault. It was a slap in the face of all my sacrifice and devotion. It exposed a brutal truth. In her eyes, I was nothing. My mother was an outsider, and even as I was trying to save her life, she saw me only as a subordinate, a money-making machine, nothing more. And Ethan, his silence was more cruel than his mother's hand. He chose to side with her, chose to trample on the dignity of the wife who had walked with him through thick and thin. He had forgotten who had stayed up all night developing those formulas, who had given up a career for him. The ego of a successful man had blinded him. He thought I would always be there, that I would endure no matter how badly I was treated. Enough. 8 years was more than enough. I was no longer the Evelyn of yesterday. My silence now was not submission. It was the calm before the storm. I wouldn't leave empty-handed. I would take back everything that belonged to me, every drop of sweat, every tear, and that $150,000 cancer treatment, the lifeline they were clinging to, would be the first thing I would mercilessly snatch away. They had taught me cruelty. Now, I would show them just how cruel a woman can be when she is pushed to the edge. That night, I didn't sleep a wink. Outside, after a futile bout of knocking, Ethan had given up and retreated to his home office. Inside the cold bedroom, I underwent a profound mental transformation. There were no more tears, no more anguish, only a cold, sharp clarity and resolve. For 8 years, I had lived for others, prioritizing the happiness of my husband and his family. Tonight, for the first time, I would live for myself. I switched on a small desk lamp, its soft yellow light illuminating the handprint still visible on my cheek. I looked in the mirror, deep into the eyes of the woman reflected there. I no longer saw exhaustion or resignation. I saw a raging fire, a fire of self-respect and determination. The first thing I did was open my laptop. I accessed a hidden, heavily encrypted drive where I had stored all of my intellectual property from the past 8 years. It wasn't money or property deeds. It was something far more valuable: knowledge. File after file appeared on the screen. Hundreds of pages of research on new active ingredients, detailed market analyses, and marketing strategies I had drafted. Most importantly, there were the original formula files for all of Vance Pharmaceuticals' flagship products. From the best-selling cognitive enhancement supplement and the cardiovascular support formula to the top-earning anti-aging cosmetic line, every formula was the result of months, sometimes years, of my dedicated work in the small home lab I had built. Ethan only ever saw the final results. He never knew the process, never understood the immense intellectual effort and passion I had invested. Calmly, I copied all the data onto a small USB drive. Then, without hesitation, I remotely accessed the company's server and permanently deleted all the original files. I also wiped the access logs, leaving no trace. As of that moment, Vance Pharmaceuticals was a hollow shell. They had the factory, the employees, the distribution network, but they had lost their core, the formulas, the trade secrets, the technology. Next, I opened another file, a contact list of all our key partners, from the suppliers of rare pharmaceutical ingredients in Europe to the largest pharmacy chains across the country. Most of these relationships were built and maintained by me through my personal reputation and professional expertise. I drafted a professional email announcing my official departure from my informal role as Chief Scientific Advisor at Vance Pharmaceuticals and my intention to start a new personal project. I didn't send it yet. This would be the final, fatal blow, delivered at the perfect time. Finally, as dawn approached, I picked up my phone. I scrolled through my contacts and stopped at a name saved as Dr. Marcus Thorne, MGH. He was a leading oncologist and an old friend of my father's, the one who had helped me arrange Eleanor's treatment package. I took a deep breath, my chest feeling tight and cold. I knew what I was about to do was ruthless, but the image of the slap and Ethan's bowed head flashed in my mind again. They had given me no quarter, so why should I offer them mercy? I dialed the number. It rang only once before it was answered. Dr. Thorne's office. Hello, Dr. Thorne. This is Evelyn Reed. Oh, Evelyn. Why are you calling so early? Is there a problem with your mother-in-law's file? The professor's voice was as warm as ever. No, sir. Everything you arranged was perfect. I paused, gathering my courage. Doctor, I'm calling to inform you of something. I need to cancel the entire $150,000 cancer treatment package I registered for my mother-in-law, Eleanor Vance. There was a few seconds of silence on the other end. The doctor was clearly surprised. Cancel? Why, Evelyn? This is the best treatment protocol available. Everything is arranged. We were expecting her for admission tomorrow. Are there financial difficulties? No, that's not it, I replied, my voice chillingly steady. This is a personal decision. There are some family reasons I can't discuss. Please, could you process the cancellation this morning? I will take full responsibility for any associated fees. I'm truly sorry for the inconvenience. I spoke clearly, without a hint of hesitation. Dr. Thorne, though he didn't understand, respected my decision. Very well. If you've made up your mind, I'll have my team handle it. Thank you so much, doctor. I hung up and tossed the phone onto the bed. A huge weight lifted from my shoulders. I felt a strange sense of relief. I had severed the final tie. I had slammed the door on my past. Just then, the first rays of a new day broke through the window. It was a Monday, a day for a new beginning. I stood up, opened my closet, and chose my most elegant business suit, an outfit I hadn't had occasion to wear in a very long time. Today, Dr. Evelyn Reed was officially back in business. The storm I had quietly brewed through the night began to unleash its first thunderbolts upon the Vance family at exactly 9 a.m. that morning. Ethan was in his office, trying to focus on the quarterly financial report, but his mind was in turmoil. Last night's argument, his mother's slap, and especially my terrifying silence, had left him deeply unsettled. He had tried calling me a few times that morning, but I hadn't answered. He told himself I was just upset and would be back to normal in a few days. He had grown far too accustomed to my submissiveness. Just then, his desk phone rang. It was the administration office of the hospital. Ethan was surprised but answered quickly, assuming they were calling to confirm his mother's admission. Vance Pharmaceuticals, Ethan Vance speaking. Good morning, Mr. Vance. This is the Client Services Department at Massachusetts General Hospital. The voice on the other end was polite and professional. We are calling to confirm that the premium oncology treatment package, valued at $150,000 for patient Eleanor Vance, has been canceled at the request of the registrant, Mrs. Evelyn Reed, at 7 a.m. this morning. All procedures have been completed. This call is to officially inform the family. Every word from the receptionist was like a hammer blow to Ethan's head. He froze, his ears ringing, unable to believe what he had just heard. What did you say? Canceled? Why was it canceled? Are you sure there isn't some mistake? No mistake, sir. Mrs. Reed personally called Dr. Marcus Thorne, the head of our oncology department, to request the cancellation. We are simply following procedure by confirming with the next of kin. If you have any further questions, please contact Mrs. Reed directly. Have a good day, sir. The receptionist politely hung up. Ethan sat paralyzed in his chair, the phone slipping from his hand and clattering onto the desk. Cancelled. Evelyn had canceled his mother's treatment. She had dared to do that. Had she lost her mind? His shock quickly morphed into pure rage. He frantically dialed my number, but all he heard was the continuous tone of a disconnected line. He called Eleanor, his voice frantic. "Mom, where are you? We have a huge problem." "Evelyn, she canceled your treatment plan." Eleanor was at home, gleefully packing a suitcase for her hospital stay the next day. She had been dreaming of being treated in a luxury, 5-star hotel-like environment, attended to by top doctors. Hearing the news from Ethan, she was stunned. The bag of clothes fell from her hands. What? She actually did it? That crazy bitch. She wants me to die. Both mother and son were in a panic. They couldn't comprehend how I could act so decisively, so ruthlessly. In their minds, I was still the meek, gentle Evelyn, who would never dare to fight back, no matter how badly she was treated. "Where is she? We have to find her now." Eleanor screamed into the phone. She must have run home to her pathetic mother. "Go, Ethan. Get over there and drag her back here." Without a second thought, Ethan stormed out of his office, drove home like a madman to pick up his mother, and together, their faces masks of fury, they sped toward my parents' modest house in a quiet neighborhood. They thought they could use their authority, their usual tirades of abuse, to overwhelm me and force me into submission, as they always had. They thought if they made a big enough scene, I would be frightened into reversing my decision. They arrived and began pounding on the door, not even bothering to ring the bell. "Open up. Where is Evelyn? Get her out here right now." "You ungrateful witch. Are you trying to start a rebellion?" Eleanor's shrieks echoed through the small street, causing neighbors to peek out of their windows. Inside, my parents were startled, unsure of what was happening. My father moved to open the door, but I stopped him. I had anticipated this. I had come to my parents' house early that morning, not to hide, but to wait for them. I knew this would be the first battlefield in my war, and I was prepared. I took a deep breath, adjusted the blazer of my suit, and calmly walked to the door to face their wrath. The moment the door opened, Eleanor charged in like a wild animal, her eyes scanning the room for me. As soon as she saw me standing calmly in the living room, she rushed forward, her hand raised to strike me again. But this time, I was ready. I was a step faster, raising my arm to block her wrist, gripping it firmly enough to make her wince in pain. "What do you think you're doing?" I asked, my voice as cold as ice, my eyes locked on hers, devoid of fear. One slap was more than enough. I won't allow a second one. Eleanor froze, shocked and enraged by my resistance. She tried to pull her hand away but couldn't. You dare to stop me? Let go of me, you disrespectful brat! How dare you show your face after what you've done? You canceled my treatment. You want me to die, don't you?" "Die?" I let out a short, cynical laugh. "Rest assured, Eleanor, I'm a pharmacist, not a murderer. I simply don't wish to waste $150,000 money earned from my own blood, sweat, and tears to save someone who doesn't even see me as a human being, someone who calls my own mother an outsider." Ethan had entered by now, followed by my anxious parents. Seeing the struggle, he rushed to separate us. Evelyn, what are you doing? How can you talk to Mom like that? Apologize to her right now and explain to me why you canceled her treatment. I released Eleanor's wrist and took a step back, brushing off my sleeve as if I had touched something dirty. I turned to face Ethan, the man I had once loved with all my heart. Now, all I felt was contempt. Apologize? I am not the one who needs to apologize. As for an explanation? Fine. You want an explanation? I'll give you one. I walked calmly to the coffee table, where I had placed a thick binder. I picked it up and faced them both. For the past 8 years, you both have believed that Vance Pharmaceuticals is successful because of Ethan's business acumen, correct? You both have believed that I am just a freeloader, a wife living off her husband, correct? Eleanor sneered. Isn't it true? Without my son, would you be living in a mansion, driving a luxury car? Then today, I will show you who the real freeloader in this family is. I flipped open the first page of the binder. This is a copy of my bank statement from 8 years ago. The entire $25,000 from my wedding gifts and another $15,000 I borrowed from my parents, all transferred to Ethan's account as the seed money to start the company. Ethan, how much money did you have to your name back then? Ethan's face went pale. He was speechless. I turned to the next page, and this is my original, handwritten draft of the formula for Neurovance, the Cognitive Enhancement Supplement. It was our first product, the one that launched the company. And here, I continued flipping pages, is the formula for the Eterna Glow Anti-Aging Cream, the CardioSure Heart Health Supplement, all of them. Every single product that generates millions in revenue for the company, the original formulas are all here, researched and developed solely by me. Ethan, besides signing papers and entertaining clients, what exactly was your contribution to the creation of these products? Each question I asked was like a hammer blow. Eleanor and Ethan's expressions shifted from anger to disbelief. My own parents were stunned. They had no idea their daughter had sacrificed and contributed so much in silence. I wasn't finished. And this is a list of our key partners and suppliers. Dr. An in South Korea, who provides the rare ginseng extract. Dr. Meyer in Germany, who holds the patent for our proprietary extraction technology. Did they partner with Vance Pharmaceuticals out of respect for my scientific expertise or for your talent at schmoozing over drinks, Ethan? I threw the binder onto the table. The sound of the papers hitting the wood was sharp and final. The $150,000 for your treatment, Eleanor, and every other asset this family owns, was earned primarily through my intellect and my labor. I have every right to decide how it's used. I used $200 to support my own mother, a woman who sacrificed her life for me. What was wrong with that? What right did you have to slap me? And what right do you, I stared at Ethan, have to demand I apologize? The room was thick with tension. Eleanor and Ethan couldn't utter a single word in their defense. The truth had been laid bare. It's over, I said, my voice firm and final. I have already filed for divorce. I will not leave with nothing. I will be taking my 50% stake in the company, exactly what I deserve. The house, the cars, we will divide them according to the law. And now, I'm asking you to leave my parents' home. This place does not welcome the ungrateful and the cruel. With that, I threw the door wide open, an unceremonious dismissal. After a moment of stunned silence, Eleanor and Ethan stumbled out. Their faces were no longer filled with anger, but with a dawning, terrifying realization. They were about to lose not just a daughter-in-law and a wife. They were about to lose everything. After the fiery confrontation at my parents' house, Ethan returned to the office like a man in a trance. My words, the undeniable evidence, replayed endlessly in his mind. He had always believed the success of Vance Pharmaceuticals was due to his leadership, his networking skills. He had deluded himself into thinking I was merely a supporting player, a wife handling the simple technical work behind the scenes. Now, with the curtain pulled back, he was forced to face a devastating truth. He was merely a puppet, a polished figurehead. The real puppet master, the one pulling all the strings, was the wife he had taken for granted. That truth was proven swiftly and cruelly in the days that followed. The first crisis erupted in the research and development department, the heart of the company. A new shipment of a premium organic rose extract from France was proving unstable in the production of a new moisturizing cream. The final product was separating and had an off smell. The R&D team, accustomed to following my detailed instructions, was completely lost. They tried adjusting ratios and temperatures, but nothing worked. The head of R&D, a man I had personally mentored, knocked on Ethan's door, his face etched with worry. "Sir, the new product batch is a total failure. We've tried everything. In the past, whenever we had issues like this, Mrs. Reed would handle it. She could just look at the data and pinpoint the problem immediately. Maybe you could try calling her?" Ethan sat frozen. Call me? On what grounds? All he knew was that the raw materials were incredibly expensive. If they couldn't solve the problem, a shipment worth hundreds of thousands of dollars would have to be destroyed. He tried to remain calm. Just keep working on it. I'll figure something out. But he had no idea what to do. He opened the product development files, staring at the complex chemical formulas and technical specifications, and his mind went blank. It was a foreign language he couldn't comprehend. He finally realized he was just a salesman, skilled at dinner meetings and making promises. When it came to the actual science, he was a complete novice. Then came the second blow, far more devastating than the first. The email I had drafted was finally sent. Dr. An from South Korea, the exclusive supplier of their most valuable ginseng, called Ethan directly. Mr. Vance, I just received an email from Dr. Reed. I am very sorry to hear about your family situation. She is an incredibly talented and ethical scientist. Our partnership over the years has been based largely on my trust in her expertise. Now that she has left, I believe our collaboration should also come to an end. We will not be able to supply the next shipment to Vance Pharmaceuticals. I wish you the best of luck. The call ended, leaving Ethan ice cold. Without that supply, their top-tier, highest-margin product line would have to be discontinued. Before he could even process the news, the phone rang again. This time it was Dr. Meyer, the German partner. The message was the same. He was officially revoking their license to use his extraction technology, as the contract explicitly stated it was to be used only under the direct technical supervision of Dr. Evelyn Reed. Over the next 2 days, Ethan was bombarded with calls and emails from their most important partners. Major pharmacy chains demanded emergency meetings to review their contracts now that the brains of the products was gone. Investors started calling, inquiring about rumors of internal instability. Vance Pharmaceuticals, the ship Ethan had so proudly claimed to captain, was suddenly being tossed in a massive storm. Departments fell into disarray, and employees began to whisper and panic. Ethan ran around, trying to reassure one person and make promises to another, but it was useless. Without me, without my technical expertise, his words were hollow and meaningless. He finally understood what I had said. Who is the real freeloader in this family? He had been wrong, catastrophically wrong. It wasn't me living off him, it was him, and his entire company, that had been living off my intellect and my sacrifice for 8 long years. The success he claimed was a sandcastle I had built, and now that I had walked away, it was collapsing into the sea. While Ethan was reeling from the corporate crisis, Eleanor was facing her own grim reality. With the premium treatment canceled, she was forced to rely on standard care covered by her insurance at a public hospital. There was no private, hotel-like room, no 24/7 nursing staff, no cutting-edge medicine. Instead, she was in a crowded, noisy 6-bed ward, facing long waits for assistance and dealing with the harsh side effects of generic chemotherapy drugs. The first rounds of chemo began, and her already frail body deteriorated rapidly. Her hair fell out in clumps, her skin turned sallow and gray. She vomited constantly after each infusion, and could barely eat. The physical agony, combined with her mental collapse, transformed her. The arrogant, sharp-tongued woman was gone, replaced by a gaunt, sickly old woman curled up on a cold hospital bed. The stark contrast between her current reality and the luxurious, resort-like treatment I had arranged for her only deepened her bitterness and regret. Every time a wave of pain hit her, every time she choked down a bland hospital meal, the image of me would surface in her mind. She remembered the days I had cared for her, the bowls of nourishing soup I'd prepared, the supplements I'd carefully selected. She had taken it all for granted, even criticized my efforts. Now that it was gone, she viscerally understood what she had lost. But the nature of a selfish, manipulative person doesn't change easily. Her regret was born not of genuine remorse, but of fear and desperation. She was afraid of dying. She knew that the only person who could save her now, the only one who could bring back that $150,000 treatment, was me. And so, a new performance began, one more calculated and sinister than any before. Her attitude shifted dramatically. She started calling Ethan, not to berate him, but to offer gentle advice punctuated by sobs. "Ethan, I know you're suffering, but Evelyn has every right to be angry. It's my fault, all my fault. I'm old, I'm confused. I didn't think straight. Try to talk to her, son. Beg her to forgive me. Tell her I miss her so much. Being sick like this, I just want her here, taking care of me. I don't need money, I just need her affection." She was deliberately playing the part of the repentant mother-in-law, the pitiful patient longing for the love of the daughter-in-law she had wronged. She knew my weakness was my compassionate nature, my tendency to be easily moved. She hoped to use the mother-daughter card to sway me. When Ethan seemed hesitant, she played her trump card. She had a nurse take a photo of her, a perfectly staged photo. In it, she lay on the hospital bed, gaunt and pale, an IV in her hand, her eyes closed as if in exhausted sleep. A single, glistening tear rested on her cheek. It was an image designed for maximum emotional impact. She sent it to Ethan with a message. "Show this to her, son. Tell her this might be the last time we ever see each other." Ethan, unable to reach me for days, used an unknown number to send me the photo. He didn't write much, just a single, short sentence. "Mom is very sick. She misses you." I received the message one afternoon after finishing an important meeting. I opened the photo, and for a second, my heart clenched. Despite my resolve, seeing Eleanor in that state stirred a flicker of pity I couldn't entirely suppress. She was, after all, someone I had once called Mom, someone I had poured my heart into caring for. I stared at the photo for a long time, an intense internal battle raging within me. My rational mind screamed that it was a charade, a trap. But my emotions whispered, what if she really is sorry? What if she's really not going to make it? Would I be too cruel? Eleanor's scheme was brilliant. She wasn't demanding money or asking me to come back. She was attacking my compassion, the last shred of humanity she believed still existed in me. She was weaving an emotional net, invisible but incredibly dangerous, and waiting for me, the prey, to walk right into it. Eleanor's mother-daughter-in-law gambit had a significant psychological effect, and Ethan, following his mother's lead, launched his own campaign. He no longer used commands or accusations. Instead, he adopted a new persona, the regretful husband, the dutiful son, caught between immense pressures. After sending me the photo and receiving no reply, Ethan began a series of long, carefully crafted, and sorrowful text messages. "Evelyn, I know you're still angry with me and Mom. I don't dare ask for your forgiveness because the pain we caused you is too great. I just want to tell you that I am truly sorry. Every night when I come back to this empty house, I think of you, of the happy times we shared. I was wrong to let my ego blind me. Wrong for not protecting you from my mother. I'm a terrible husband, a useless man." He began by belittling himself, taking all the blame, a classic psychological tactic, to evoke pity. "The company is in serious trouble now. Everything has been in chaos since you left. It's only now that I truly understand how important you were. Without you, I'm nothing. I've lost my way. I've lost everything, Evelyn." Next, he lamented his difficulties and his helplessness, painting a picture of a pitiful man on the verge of collapse who needed my help. Finally, he played his ace. Eleanor. But all those troubles are nothing compared to the pain I feel watching Mom get weaker every day. The doctors say her prognosis isn't good. Every time I visit, she grabs my hand and asks where you are, why you haven't come to see her. She cries. She says she misses you, misses the food you used to cook. Evelyn, no matter what, she's my mother. The woman who gave birth to me. I can't just stand by and watch her die in pain and regret. I'm begging you. I'm pleading with you. Please give her a chance. Give me a chance. Please come back. Come back to me and Mom. I promise. I swear. I will change. I will never let you suffer another injustice again. I will protect you. We can save her together. We can rebuild everything together. Please, Evelyn. If I were the Evelyn of a month ago, those words might have been enough to soften my heart, enough to pull me back into that toxic swamp. But the Evelyn of today was different. Eleanor's slap and Ethan's silence had been a powerful antibiotic, immunizing me against all their sweet talk and crocodile tears. I read every word, but my heart remained unmoved. I found it laughable because of his hypocrisy. Was he regretful? No, he was terrified. He was scared of losing his company, scared of losing his comfortable life. He begged me to come back not because he loved me, but because he needed me. He needed my brain and my effort to save his collapsing career. Laughable because of his selfishness. Even in his plea, he only thought of himself and his mother. He spoke of his pain, of his mother's regret. But did he ever once think of the pain I had endured for 8 years? Did he ever ask if I was okay? If I needed anything? Not a single word. Seeing my continued silence, Ethan decided on a more direct approach. He came to my parents' house. This time, he didn't cause a scene. He just stood at the gate, looking utterly pathetic, unshaven, clothes wrinkled, eyes sunken. He didn't knock, just stood there waiting. My parents saw him and didn't have the heart to chase him away. When I returned from work and saw him, I tried to walk past him as if he were a stranger, but he ran to block my path. He dropped to his knees right in front of me, in the middle of the street. "Evelyn, please, don't treat me like this," he cried, grabbing my leg, tears streaming down his face. "I know I was wrong. Hit me, curse me, do whatever you want, but please don't be silent. Come back. Everything will be okay. Mom needs you, the company needs you, and I need you too." I stood still, looking down at the man kneeling at my feet. I felt no pity, no satisfaction, only a profound exhaustion and disappointment. I had seen enough of this drama. I calmly removed his hand. "Ethan, get up. Don't make a fool of yourself in front of the whole neighborhood." My voice was cold and distant. "Need? You say you need me. You need my knowledge to save your company. Your mother needs my money to save her life. What about me? What do I need from you two? Do I need slaps, insults, and betrayal?" I looked him straight in the eye. "There is nothing left to say between us. A broken mirror can't be fixed. Go home, and don't ever come here to bother me or my family again. I am not withdrawing the divorce petition. The next time we speak, it will be in court." With that, I turned my back, walked into the house, and slammed the gate shut, leaving Ethan kneeling in the street, steeped in desperation and humiliation. He had lost. All his attempts at salvaging the situation had failed. He realized that the woman he thought he could so easily control had become stronger and more resolute than he could ever have imagined. He had no chances left. After firmly rejecting Ethan's plea, I knew there was no turning back. This was a war I had to win, or they would drag me back into the mire. I decided it was time for a decisive blow, a counterattack not just to defend myself, but to establish my own standing and capability, to show Ethan and the world that without him, I wouldn't just survive, I would thrive. That blow was the creation of my own pharmaceutical company. I named it Reed Biopharma. A simple name, but it carried all of my dignity, honor, and determination. I wanted to build a brand that was a true reflection of myself, founded on real scientific knowledge and professional integrity. I wasn't starting from zero like Ethan had 8 years prior. I held all the advantages he never possessed. I had deep expertise, exclusive product formulas that were thoroughly researched, and most importantly, I had the personal reputation and relationships with top experts and partners in the industry. I moved quickly and decisively. Using my personal savings and financial support from my parents, I leased an office and a small manufacturing facility. I called my old colleagues, talented pharmacists and chemical engineers I had worked with, people who knew my capabilities and were tired of Ethan's management by nepotism style. Most of them agreed to join me immediately, bringing not just their experience but also their loyalty and enthusiasm. Then, I began re-establishing contact with Vance Pharmaceuticals' former partners. I didn't need to badmouth Ethan or poach them. I simply presented my new venture and the innovative product lines I was developing, products with quality that far surpassed anything Vance Pharmaceuticals could offer. The response exceeded my wildest expectations. Dr. An, after hearing my plan, immediately agreed to sign an exclusive supply contract for the rare ginseng with Reed Biopharma. He told me, "I partner with talent and integrity, Evelyn, not with a company name." Dr. Meyer from Germany felt the same. He not only agreed to transfer the license for his extraction technology to me, but also proposed a deeper collaboration to develop new product lines together. The major pharmacy chains, upon being introduced to my upcoming products with their superior formulas and competitive pricing strategy, immediately expressed their desire to become exclusive distributors. They knew that betting on me was betting on guaranteed quality. In less than 2 months, Reed Biopharma was solidly established. My company, though a newcomer, was built on a rock-solid foundation with immense growth potential. We quickly launched our first product line based on my old formulas, but significantly improved in quality and packaging. The launch of Reed Biopharma sent shockwaves through the market. Consumers who were already familiar with the quality of the old products quickly switched to the new, more effective, and better packaged versions. Pharmacies gave my products prime shelf space. Ethan's company, already struggling from the loss of its trade secrets and key partners, now faced an unbeatable competitor. His products became obsolete, unable to compete. Sales plummeted disastrously. He tried to launch new products, but without me, his R&D team was like a headless snake, capable only of producing cheap, low-quality imitations. Vance Pharmaceuticals, once a rising star, faded into a shadow of its former self, slowly being forgotten. I didn't have to do anything to get revenge on Ethan. My own success, the meteoric rise of Reed Biopharma, was the sweetest and most bitter revenge of all. It proved to him what a treasure he had lost. He had tried to push me down, but in doing so, he had only given me the motivation to rise higher and shine brighter than ever before. The brighter the success of Reed Biopharma shone, the deeper Eleanor's future sank into darkness. Lying on the cold bed of the public hospital, each passing day was a form of torture, both physical and mental. The prolonged chemotherapy sessions drained her of all vitality, leaving her as little more than skin and bones. But the physical pain was nothing compared to the torment of regret and despair gnawing at her soul. She obsessively followed the news about me. She read articles praising the miraculous rise of Reed Biopharma, celebrating a talented female scientist who dared to dream and to act. She saw me on television, a confident, radiant Evelyn in an elegant suit, speaking at an international conference. Every image, every piece of information, was a knife twisting in her heart. That woman, that brilliant and successful woman, had once been her daughter-in-law. She had been right there, ready to move heaven and earth to save her. But with her own selfishness and foolishness, Eleanor had pushed her away. She had single-handedly destroyed her only path to survival. She began to imagine what could have been. If she hadn't slapped me that day, If she had treated me with even a little kindness, where would she be now? Probably in a luxurious private hospital room, cared for by the best doctors, with me by her side, using all my knowledge to find the best possible treatment. She could have had a chance at life, but it was all just, if only. Regret consumed her, but it was a regret born not of genuine remorse for her actions, but of loss and fear. She regretted losing such a valuable asset, a moneymaker and a lifesaver. She was terrified of the death that crept closer each day. Whenever Ethan visited, she no longer berated him. Instead, she would grasp his hand, her voice weak. "Ethan, have you seen Evelyn? How is she doing?" Ethan could only shake his head, not daring to tell his mother the truth that his company was on the brink of bankruptcy, that soon he wouldn't even have money for her hospital bills. He could only lie. "She's fine, Mom. Her company is doing very well." Hearing this, a faint glimmer of hope would appear in Eleanor's eyes. Did she ask about me?" "Yes," she asked briefly. Ethan would lie again, unable to extinguish his mother's last hope. But Eleanor wasn't a fool. She knew he was lying. She knew I would never ask about her. My silence was the cruelest punishment of all. She would begin to cry, tears of a late and bitter repentance. "I was wrong, Ethan. I was so wrong. I was terrible to her. Now, it's my karma. I just wish." Before I close my eyes, I could tell her I'm sorry. "Can you help me, son? Tell her I'm sorry." But that apology was far too late. Her cancer progressed rapidly. Unresponsive to the standard treatment, the cells had begun to metastasize. The doctors informed Ethan that her time was short. She fell into a state of complete despair. Lying on her bed, staring at the white ceiling, she could only ruminate on her pain and regret. She had once held everything in her hands: a successful son, a brilliant and devoted daughter-in-law, a future of wealth. But her own greed and selfishness had led her to destroy it all. Now, as death loomed, she realized what she truly needed wasn't money, but a little bit of human compassion, and that was something she had thrown away herself. While Eleanor wrestled with death in the hospital, Ethan's world outside was collapsing just as swiftly. The rise of Reed Biopharma did more than just steal market share and partners. It held up a giant mirror, reflecting and exposing all of Ethan's incompetence and inadequacy. Without me behind the scenes, he was like an emperor with no clothes, revealed to be nothing more than a beggar. Problems at the company erupted like a plague. The production line constantly malfunctioned because no one had the expertise to operate and maintain the complex machinery I had once managed. Product quality declined, and customers began to complain that the supplements were no longer effective. Some even had allergic reactions. A media crisis ensued, but Ethan was completely inept at handling it. He tried to buy the silence of a few small outlets, but he couldn't stop the wave of boycotts spreading across social media. Key employees, those who had been with the company from the beginning, started to leave. They couldn't work under a leader with no technical knowledge, who made one disastrous, emotional decision after another. A few of them came to work for Reed Biopharma, where they found a professional environment and a true visionary leader. Each resignation letter on his desk was another stab at Ethan's ego. Bank loans came due, but with revenues in freefall, the company couldn't pay. The bank sent a flurry of default notices. Ethan ran from one old contact to another, begging for help, but was met with nothing but polite refusals. No one wanted to invest in a sinking ship. Finally, the inevitable happened. 6 months after I left, Vance Pharmaceuticals officially filed for bankruptcy. It was a day of pouring rain, mirroring Ethan's mood. He stood outside the company gates, watching as officials arrived to seal the assets, his heart breaking. 8 years of work, 8 years of pride, all turned to dust. He had lost everything. To pay off the banks and suppliers, Ethan was forced to sell the mansion. He also had to sell the luxury car he had always seen as a symbol of his success. From a celebrated CEO living in splendor, he became a penniless man, moving into a tiny, squalid rented room. This collapse was not just financial. It was a complete shattering of his spirit, his pride. He fell into a deep depression, locking himself in his room, drinking and smoking all day. He didn't dare face anyone, terrified of their pitying glances and whispered gossip. In his drunken stupors, he would think of me. He remembered my words on that day of our confrontation. "You're just a salesman, skilled at schmoozing." He had been furious then, but now he knew it was the undeniable truth. He had been deluded about his own abilities, complacent in his borrowed success. He thought he was the creator, never realizing he was just the shadow of a giant. And when the giant walked away, his shadow vanished. The downfall was a steep price to pay, but perhaps it was a necessary lesson for him to finally see his own true value, or rather, the lack thereof. After weeks of sinking in alcohol and self-recrimination, one afternoon, when he was momentarily sober, Ethan did something unexpected. He put on a clean set of clothes, shaved his overgrown beard, and went to the Reed Biopharma headquarters. He held no hope of begging or winning me back. He just wanted to see me one last time, to say the things he should have said long ago. I was preparing to leave the office when my assistant informed me that an Ethan Vance was here to see me. I was surprised, but agreed to meet him. I was curious to see what else he could possibly have to say. I met him at a small cafe near the company. He was already there, sitting in a quiet corner. He looked thin and haggard. The confident, polished demeanor of a CEO was gone, replaced by a weary, defeated air. When he saw me, he stood up awkwardly, unable to meet my eyes. We sat in silence for a long moment. Finally, Ethan broke it. "Evelyn, are you doing well?" he asked, his voice hesitant. "I'm fine. Thank you for asking," I replied, my tone neutral and distant. Another silence stretched. He seemed to be gathering all his courage. "I didn't come here to ask for anything," he said, taking a deep breath. "I know it's all over. I wanted to say I'm sorry. A real apology, from the bottom of my heart." He looked up, meeting my eyes for the first time. They were red-rimmed, filled with regret and pain. "Evelyn, I'm sorry for everything. I was a terrible husband, a pathetic man. I didn't appreciate what I had. I let my selfishness and my stupid pride destroy everything." He paused, his voice cracking. "The truth is, deep down, I always knew you were smarter, more capable than me. I knew the company was successful because of you, but I couldn't admit it, not even to myself. A man's ego, it wouldn't let me accept that my wife was better than me, so I acted like I was the leader, the one in charge. I let my mother belittle you because it made me feel like I still had some power in my own home. I used my weakness as a way to assert my position. I was a coward, wasn't I?" It was the first time I had ever heard him speak like this. This late confession was startling. He continued, his voice laced with bitterness. "I thought if I had money and status, I'd have everything. But now that I have nothing, I realize the most precious thing I ever had was you, the peace you brought to my life, and I lost it forever. My mother, she regrets it too. She asked me to apologize to you on her behalf. She said she was wrong." I listened in silence. I no longer felt anger or satisfaction, only a quiet sadness. Sadness for a marriage that could have been happy. Sadness for a man who let his ego ruin his life. "It's all in the past." "Ethan," I finally said, my voice softer. "Holding on to resentment won't change anything. I'm not angry with you or your mother anymore. I just hope that after all of this, you can truly learn from your mistakes and live a better life. Take care of your mother. She doesn't have much time left." With that, I stood up. "I have to go. Goodbye, Ethan." I turned and walked away without looking back. I knew this meeting was the real end, a final, complete closure to that chapter of my life. Ethan's confession, however late, had helped untie the last knot in my heart. I could finally move forward, completely unburdened. My encounter with Ethan left me contemplative. His confession, his haggard appearance, and the news about Eleanor's condition made it impossible for me to remain completely indifferent. I had promised myself a clean break, but the conscience of a healthcare professional and perhaps a final, lingering thread of shared history wouldn't allow it. Returning to them was impossible. But I couldn't stand by and watch a life fade away in pain and poverty, especially when I had the means to help. I wrestled with myself. Part of me said it was karma, that they deserved their fate. But another, more humane part of me whispered that it is better to untie a knot of hatred than to tighten it. Saving a life, no matter whose, is always the right thing to do. Ultimately, I made a decision. I would act in secret, without their knowledge. I wanted no illusions of forgiveness or reconciliation. I would help them anonymously, not for them, but for my own peace of mind. I contacted Dr. Thorne again and inquired about Eleanor's specific condition. He confirmed she was in the final stages. All treatment now was palliative, aimed at extending her life and easing her suffering. There was a new drug, a targeted therapy, that could significantly reduce her pain and allow her to spend her final days in peace. But it was prohibitively expensive and not covered by insurance. I didn't hesitate. "Dr. Thorne," I said, "I have a proposal. I would like to establish a small foundation, let's call it the Circle of Compassion Fund, to support terminal cancer patients with financial difficulties in your department. I will be the primary donor. And the very first patient I want the fund to support is Eleanor Vance. I want the fund to cover the entire cost of that new drug for her, as well as improve her nursing care conditions. But there is one absolute condition. All of this support must be provided under the fund's name, completely anonymously. The patient and her family must never know I am involved." Dr. Thorne was taken aback by my proposal. He was silent for a long moment before speaking, his voice full of emotion. "Evelyn, you truly have a benevolent heart. I understand. I promise to carry out your wishes exactly." And so, the Circle of Compassion Fund was born. A few days later, Ethan received a call from the hospital. He was informed that his mother's case had been reviewed by a new charitable foundation and that they had decided to sponsor all of her medical costs for the remainder of her life. Eleanor was moved to a better, semi-private room. She began receiving the new medication. Ethan and Eleanor were stunned and deeply moved. They couldn't believe such a miracle could happen in their darkest hour. They believed it was a blessing from above, the good fortune of their ancestors. They never suspected that the person behind this miracle was the daughter-in-law, the wife they had treated so cruelly. I did this not for their gratitude, nor to prove my own magnanimity. I did it simply so my own heart could be at peace. I wanted to put a definitive end to the cycle of resentment. I wanted Eleanor's passing to be as gentle as possible, and I wanted to be able to look back on this time without regretting that I could have done something, but chose not to. This act of forgiveness was not for them, it was for me, so I could completely wash away the past and begin a new life, free of any lingering burdens. Thanks to the timely support from the anonymous foundation, Eleanor Vance's final days were much more peaceful than her cruel fate had initially dictated. The targeted cancer therapy, an advanced and incredibly expensive treatment she could never have afforded, worked wonders. While it couldn't reverse the course of her terminal illness, it accomplished something extraordinary. It alleviated the horrific pain that had tormented her day and night. She could now eat small meals and get short periods of restful sleep. She had more lucid moments, more time for reflection on a long life filled with mistakes. In the profound silence of her hospital room, facing her own mortality, Eleanor finally had the clarity to look back on everything with an unclouded mind, free from the distortions of greed, selfishness, and prejudice. She remembered every detail of her son's marriage, a marriage she had both orchestrated and destroyed. She remembered me as a young, talented bride, full of love. She remembered the countless times I had cared for her, the expensive gifts I'd given her. And she remembered her own harsh words, her unreasonable demands, her constant criticism. Each memory was a sharp pang of regret. She realized her selfishness had not only ruined my life, but also that of her only son and herself. She had smothered Ethan with a blind, possessive love, turning him into a weak man who lived in his wife's shadow. She had belittled me, never acknowledging my talent, because of the antiquated notion that a daughter-in-law is an outsider. She was now reaping what she had sown. She cried not the manipulative tears of before, but genuine tears of remorse. She called Ethan to her bedside, her voice weak but clear. "Ethan, I was wrong. I failed to raise you properly. I was selfish. I was greedy. I destroyed your happiness, your family. Evelyn. She was a good daughter-in-law. So good. And I was too blind to see it. After I'm gone, if you ever see her again, you get on your knees and you apologize for me. Tell her this old woman finally understood her mistakes. And tell her, thank you. I don't know who is behind that charity, but I have a feeling it's her. Only she has a heart that big." Ethan could only nod, tears streaming down his face. His mother's final words were a last, painful confirmation of all their sins. A few weeks later, on a quiet autumn morning, Eleanor Vance drew her last breath. She passed away peacefully, her face finally free from pain and resentment. Her death marked the end of a generation defined by prejudice and greed. For Ethan, it was a great loss, but also a release. He no longer had to carry the heavy burden of her care. After arranging a simple funeral, he quietly sold what little remained of their once wealthy family. He left a short note for his relatives and boarded a bus to a remote, rural town, seeking a place where no one knew his name, a place to start over with a simple life of manual labor, free from hollow ambitions. It was the only way he could atone for his mistakes and find peace. 4 years passed in the blink of an eye. My life had become a beautiful symphony. Reed Biopharma grew into one of the leading pharmaceutical brands in the country, known not only for its superior products but also for its meaningful social contributions. The Circle of Compassion Fund started with Eleanor's story, expanded into a major charitable organization, helping hundreds of cancer patients across the nation. But my greatest success was not in business. It was the small, loving family I had built. I had met Kevin, a kind, warm, and brilliant architect who entered my life when I needed support the most. He became not just my husband, but my partner and best friend. The birth of our 2 children, a cheerful boy and a lovely girl, made our happiness complete. Our home, a beautiful house designed by Kevin, was always filled with laughter. One weekend afternoon, my family and I were at a charity event hosted by my foundation at a large city hospital. There, in a quiet corner under a tree, I saw a familiar figure. It was Ethan. He was no longer the dashing CEO nor the disheveled wreck. He was dressed in hospital pajamas, sitting in a wheelchair, quietly watching the festivities. He looked thinner and paler. I later learned that after his mother's death, he had worked himself to the bone, suffering a mild stroke. He was lucky to have survived, but was left with partial paralysis in one leg. Our eyes met across the lawn. There was no awkwardness, no resentment. He looked at me, at Kevin standing by my side, at my children playing on the grass. His gaze was complex, a mixture of regret, perhaps, but mostly a quiet acceptance. He gave me a slight nod, a gentle gesture that felt like a greeting and a belated blessing. I smiled and nodded back, my heart completely at peace. The grievances of the past had truly vanished. We each had our own lives now, each living with the consequences of our choices. I turned and took Kevin's hand, feeling the safety and peace he always brought me. I watched my children running under the golden afternoon sun. I took a deep breath, inhaling the scent of sun, wind, and the undeniable fragrance of happiness. I had walked through the darkest tunnel of my life, but I had fought my way out. Now, I was standing in the brilliant sunshine of a new dawn. My story had ended not with bitter revenge, but with forgiveness, release, and a new beginning filled with love. I had learned that the greatest victory is not in defeating others, but in conquering oneself and finding peace within.